Welcome, everyone, to this month's National Equine Conference call. As a reminder, this call is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the Equine Disease Communication Center within a week after the call. So again, the call is being recorded. I thank everybody for joining us this month on the National Equine Conference call. Just a reminder that next month, the October call is being canceled due to U.S. Animal Health Association annual meeting and folks traveling to it. So there'll be no October call. Our next call will be our November call. So with that, I'm going to get right into the agenda, and I'll have some additional updates and messages at the end of today's call. But due to our timing and our first speaker needing to get off the call, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Aaron Reiner. He's the Assistant Director of USDA's APHIS Animal Care, and he's going to be providing us a Horse Protection Act update. Dr. Reiner, please take it away.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Let me share my slides for you. And as I pull these up, I wanted to thank Katie and everybody for inviting me on to give you a brief overview of our new rule. Can everybody see that, Katie? Can you confirm?
Yes, sir. You're good to go. Yep.
Excellent. So before I start in with the slides, will take questions at the end, just to ensure I get through everything. Please hold your questions until I'm finished. And then I do want to preface that while I included really the highlights on these slides, it doesn't encompass all of the requirements under the new rule. So I do recommend that folks go and take a look at the new rule and what the new regulations and requirements will be. And certainly if you have any follow-up questions, you can connect with us and we'll get back to you. So with that, one of the main things that we're getting a lot of questions on now is what does the Horse Protection Act actually cover? What events, what horses? And so this is driven by regulatory definitions, which I've included here. Horse, it covers everything. So the Horse Protection Act covers all breeds, all horses, all disciplines. Where it starts to parse out and provide exceptions is when you get to the terms exhibition, sales, auctions, and shows. For the exhibition and show, I'll kind of address those because they're pretty similar in how they're defined. And I'll focus on the exceptions, which is horse exhibition and horse show excludes events where speed is the primary factor, rodeos, parades, or trail rides. The last three are pretty self-explanatory. We don't cover any rodeos, parades, or trail rides. The main one that we get a lot of questions on is the speed aspect. And what I direct folks to is that it states it's the prime factor. And so the way we look at that and interpret it in our regulation is that it has to be the main thing in which the horse and the exhibitor or rider are being assessed against speed. So the main carve out is going to be racing. So racing events are not covered. Events in which speed is a factor, but not the prime factor, those would still be covered as it's just one of the things in which you're being assessed against. When you get to sales and auctions, speed is not an issue there. There's no carve out for certain breeds. All events that are done as sales or auctions are covered by the HPA. So the only thing that isn't covered is one-on-one sales. So if it's a private event or a public event, if it's a collection of horses being sold or auctioned, that is technically covered by the HPA. I do see one quick question that just popped up. I know I said till the end, but I'll answer it now. Online sales, again, we'd have to look at, is it an event or is it one-to-one? So it really depends on how the online sale is being done. I haven't encountered an online auction or sale doesn't mean they're not happening. Most of what I've seen online is one party trying to sell a horse to another party. We would consider that one-on-one sale, so it wouldn't be covered. But if there's a big online event where you have multiple sellers, multiple buyers, we would consider that to be an online event that would be covered. But great question, as it doesn't carve out any exceptions for online. These 4 bullet points is going to touch on the main highlights, and then I'll get into more specifics on the next slides. The big one is the rule as a whole, except for one section, takes effect February 1st, 2025. And one of the biggest changes is we are eliminating the regulatory responsibilities for the horse industry organizations, or HIOs. And what that also does is it removes the third-party inspection system that's currently set in our current regulations, which is the designated qualified persons, or DQPs. So we are removing both the HIOs and DQPs, and we are moving to a new third-party inspection system using horse protection inspectors. I will cover that specific position in some subsequent slides, but what this new system is it allows the department to actually screen individuals for their appropriateness to be an HPI, to train them, and then we authorize them. So the department would have complete oversight of the third-party inspection system. And that's driven just based off of all of the conflicts of interest and the issues and concerns that we've documented over the years since this current system was put in place. The other 3 big highlights are we are prohibiting any device, method, practice, or substance applied to a horse that can either soar it or mask the evidence of soaring. We're also prohibiting all action devices on Tennessee walking and racking horses. The new rule does, in a footnote, define racking horses. And in short, it's the breed. So we do acknowledge that it's a lowercase r, and we did see some comments and concerns regarding would that include any horse that performs a rack, and no, it doesn't. It actually is defined as the racking breed. And then the last big highlight is we're prohibiting all pads, wedges, artificial toe extensions, and substances on the pasterns of Tennessee walking and racking horses, unless they have a documented therapeutic exemption from a licensed veterinarian. That is really driven by a statutory carve-out that does allow for animals to receive therapy from a veterinarian to use certain pads and substances. So that was to align with what the statutory allowance is. Just getting into a little bit of the specifics, again, pretty common questions we get asked moving forward. What are the requirements for inspection spaces? These are the main highlights again. So a sufficient well-lit space where any inspector, whether it be an HPI or a USDA VMO, can conduct inspections. Protection from elements that can either be a barn or a permanent structure. Also, we see most of the time tents, your standard camping outdoor 4-post pop-up tent is sufficient. A means to control crowds and onlookers. That one's actually more for event management, so apologies. It should be on the next slide. And then an electrical power source that can either be directly into an outlet, or a lot of events that we attend are out in fields. So we typically see generators being used to meet this requirement. Event management responsibilities. This is what I'll focus on for the next few slides. Event management is required to identify all horses that are sore or otherwise in violation of the act or regulations, and then prohibit their participation in the event, whether it be a show, an exhibition, a sale, or an auction. They can accomplish this really through one of three means. The event manager can take on that responsibility themselves, which means they would be doing the inspections to ensure the horses are compliant. They can also elect to use an inspector. They can request to use an APHIS representative, which brings no cost to the event. If we have the resources and availability to provide one, we will. Or they can elect to appoint and retain a horse protection inspector. So again, that's the new third party position. The main thing with that is we have no involvement, the department has no involvement in the contracting of that. So that is done between the event management and that particular HPI. So the HPI will set their rates and terms and develop their own contracts with event management. The regulations do require, if event management is electing to go with an HPI, they are required to use two if there are more than 100 horses entered into the event. So it's not based off of the number of entries. We do know that, one horse could be entered 10 times. It's actually based on the individual horses that are participating in the event. The requirement also expects that if there are more than 100 horses and event management is using an HPI or APHIS representative, they have a farrier on site. And that's to ensure that they're there so that if the inspector requests any type of equipment to be removed, hoof bands, shoes, pads, wedges, that the farrier is there. And then the last big thing is event management is required to ensure that there are no prohibited devices or substances within the warm-up area. Right now, they typically have a DQP checking chain carts as they come into the warm-up area to ensure there's nothing there. And then they'll walk the warm-up area to make sure no one snuck something in. Reporting requirements, this is probably our number one question right now, is what needs to be reported and by who? Any event that is covered by the HPA, so that's why those definitions are really important, is required to report to us. So this is probably one of the biggest reporting changes that we made, is we did want to hear from every event that is covered by the HPA. And that's just to ensure we know that they're going on, so that we can do some verification that folks are on federal disqualification from participation in events isn't participating. And it also gives us the opportunity to send an APHIS VMO just to check compliance at that event if we have the resources and are interested. So every event, at least 30 days prior to the event, there are certain information that's required to be provided to us. Again, this isn't an all-inclusive list. It just hits the main points. So it's standard event information like the dates, the time, the location, the name, event management information, and then whether or not event management is going to use a horse protection inspector or if they're requesting an APHIS representative, and then the anticipated number of entries. We do know there are a lot of events out there that accept entries up until the day of the event or even in the beginning classes of the event. So that's why it's an anticipated number. So it's really your best guess. And then 15 days prior to the event, if there's any change in the information that was reported to us, that has to get updated so that we know and have the current information. Again, that's at least 30 days. There's nothing preventing events from sending us that information well in advance, especially if you want to request an APHIS representative. We're actually recommending and encouraging folks to provide us with as much notice as possible. And if they're looking to go with a horse protection inspector, we encourage them to look at the list that will be posted on our website of authorized HPIs and start reaching out to them to develop contracts. That way, when you report to us at least 30 days, you already know who you're going to go with and have contracted that HPI. The post-event reporting is really where there's a big difference. Within 5 days following the event, there's two different regulatory requirements. So events that contain Tennessee walking or racking horses have certain reporting requirements, and it's more extensive. And then events that do not contain Tennessee walking and racking horses, the only thing you have to report to us within the 5 days is if your event disqualified from participation any horse that was non-compliant with the Horse Protection Act or its regulations. So another way of saying that is if your event does not have any walking or racking horses and you didn't disqualify any horse for violating the act or its regulations, you do not have to report anything to us following the conclusion of your event. So it's just the pre-event reporting that's required. HPIs, the June 7th date in here is when we were able to start accepting applications for HPIs, processing them, and then training those individuals to be authorized to conduct inspections under the HPA by February 1st of 2025. So this process is already ongoing. We're actually seeing a really large influx of applications from veterinarians to be HPIs, so we're pretty excited about that. I've listed here in very simplified version the qualifications to be an HPI. You have tier 1 qualifications, so you must either be a veterinarian, veterinary technician, or a person employed by state and local government to enforce animal welfare laws. If you meet tier 1 qualifications, you move to the tier 2 process, which is you have to demonstrate equine knowledge and experience. And then we do a pretty extensive background check looking for any criminal convictions, any violations of the Horse Protection Act, or anything else that may deem the applicant unfit to be an HPI. Once you meet the qualifications, you're put into our training program, which is online modules. And then we issue them, once they complete the training program, pass the test, issue them an authorization, which allows that individual to conduct inspections. We will be posting to our website a list of all of the authorized individuals to perform this. And then that way that management can go to them and, work out logistics for inspecting at their event. The inspection overview, real quick. I know a lot of folks on here probably aren't familiar with how we conduct our inspections and what happens when we attend one of your events. We do both pre and post event inspections. So we like to look at horses before they compete, and we also look at them after they compete. The main portion is a physical inspection. So we have a horse walk the cones so that we can look for any gait issues. And then we do a hands-on physical inspection, predominantly looking at the limbs of the horse. So we're looking for any signs of ongoing or past soring practices. We also employ some additional diagnostics to help us find soring that is being actively masked. Iris scanning doesn't do that, but we use it to identify horses. We have had issues where horses that were previously disqualified were brought back in and presented to us as a different horse. So we use iris scanning to identify horses. We do prohibited substance sampling, so we're looking for any substances that aren't supposed to be on the pasterns. We now have the ability to do that right at the event. We use gas chromatography mass spec to do that. We have 4 instruments in the field that we can in real time see if there's a substance on there. We also use digital radiography to take a look at what is on the inside of the performance packages to ensure that there's no illegal metal. We're also looking with DR at in between any packages or shoes and the hoof to make sure that there's nothing in there that would be pressure shoeing a horse. We're looking to implement blood collection to ensure that there's nothing going on there. We do have very high suspicions that a lot of horses are being sedated before they're brought to us for inspection. And that's just to ensure that the horse doesn't respond to our palpation. And then we also are field testing the use of ultrasound to measure skin thickness and thermography to identify any abnormal hot or cold regions of the pastern. Last slide here is just some resources. So I have a link to our website. On our website, we have sections for event management. We're still developing the resources there that should be up later this fall, just to really lay out event management responsibilities, reporting requirements, and then we'll have some optional forms to help be compliant. We have a section for horse protection inspectors, so a description of the job, FAQs, as well as an online application that you can submit if you're interested in that position. And then I also have a link here to the Federal Register that contains the new rule that is effective February 1. So again, I recommend everybody go and take a look at the regulations, read through it. It's a pretty quick read. Most of it is, at least in our opinion, pretty self-explanatory. But certainly if you have any questions, would like some clarification after you take a look at it, feel free to reach out to us.
Dr. Reiner, I have one question and there's a couple in the chat.
Yes.
The first question I have that I received was for every, the event responsibilities, the event manager responsibility slide that you showed, is that responsibility for every event as defined as your definition, or only those that have Tennessee walking and racking horses?
That would be for every event. Folks do get pretty concerned on that they, have to have all of those things readily available in case we show up. I think traditionally most events that are covered by USEF and regulated by USEF, you don't see us, as you guys have a pretty extensive compliance and inspection process. But that being said, we have to date never taken action against event management for not having a tent for us or not having an electrical source. So we're trying to kind of calm event management of when we show up. We like to believe we're pretty reasonable. Our team actually does come with their own tents and generators. So even if you didn't have something, we're usually prepared for it. So we typically haven't seen it be an issue of events kind of last minute when USDA shows up, providing those things for us.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the questions from the chat.
Okay.
One is, will you be sending inspectors to livestock auctions that sell horses regardless of the breed?
We certainly could.
Okay. A second question, if someone has been cited for a Horse Protection Act violation, will they be disqualified from being an inspector on the approved list?
That is correct. Yep. If a court has ruled that an individual has violated the Horse Protection Act, they are barred under these regulations from becoming a horse protection inspector.
Just for clarification, you said if the court has made that decision.
That's correct. So, and what I mean by that is we may file an administrative complaint alleging someone has violated the act. If that individual enters into a consent agreement with us, so we settle the case, they're not actually termed a violator of the Horse Protection Act. Only a court may impose that. So that's where that distinction comes in. There actually has to be a court decision stating that individual did indeed violate the Horse Protection Act.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any other questions? I do have one that came to me. Are the pre and post inspections on the same horses?
It can be. Um, Certainly we try and check as many horses going in, so most likely a horse coming back post-show may have gone through our inspection. And the reason for it is we do look to see if there's any active inflammation, open lesions that were caused to the horse while it was being shown or exhibited. And the main purpose for a post-show inspection is to check any equipment that wouldn't have been on the horse during the pre-show inspection. So for example, the Tennessee walking horses, when they come through pre-show, they won't have any action devices on them. Those are typically put on as the horse is being warmed up and then when they're being exhibited. So the only opportunity for the DQPs or for the USDA to inspect compliance of those action devices is post-event.
So there's another question in here. The racking horse designation is still causing confusion. Are you able to explain why the little r was used instead of designating racking horses, capital R, as a breed? As you mentioned, other breeds of horses may rack, including 5-gated saddlebreds, but they are not typically considered racking horses generally.
Yeah, I have a great question, and no, I don't have a response as to why little r versus big R was used. Um, just our standard comment back or response back to the comments on that was directing people to the footnote where we actually define what little r rack is. And I do have it in case anyone's interested since this is being recorded. It's defined in footnote 2 as the racking horse is a breed derived from the Tennessee walking horse. It has a smooth, natural gait known as the rack, a 4-beat gait with only 1 foot striking the ground at a time. So that's
Okay.
what would be included anytime you see racking horse in the regulation.
Okay, and I think this is going to be our last question. And can you just repeat what events are covered and your definition?
Sure. Let me go back to my slide. And Katie, I plan on getting these to you once they go through my public affairs clearance process. So you can provide it to folks if they're interested. Of course, this is in our regulations that are posted online, but a horse exhibition means a public display of any horses singly or in groups, but not in competition. The term does not include events where speed is the prime factor, rodeo events, parades, or trail rides. A horse show is very similar, but is defined as a public display of any horses in competition, except events where speed is the prime factor, rodeo events, parades, or trail rides. And then horse sale or auction means any event, public or private, at which horses are sold or auctioned, regardless of whether or not said horses are exhibited prior to or during the sale or auction.
Okay. If there are further questions, Dr. Reiner, what is the email address that or contact information that they can send that to?
Great question. I will add that to the slides, but it is horse protection, all one word. So horse protection at USDA.gov.
Okay, I really appreciate you taking the time this morning, and I know you have to run, so we appreciate your time and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, next up on our agenda is going to be an update on reporting of treatments and diagnostic testing for HISA. Dr. Sherry Silverman is the veterinary liaison with HISA who's going to give that presentation. Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, let me start by sharing my slide, make sure I get this straight. Okay. You're seeing my first slide?
No.
All right, let's try. How about there we go.
Oh, there it is. Yep, there it is. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, so my presentation also is not all inclusive. This is just an overview of what HISA is, and let's start with exactly what HISA stands for, which is the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority. We are the federally mandated oversight of thoroughbred racing in the United States, and we are the rule writing authority for the majority of the thoroughbred racetracks in the United States. I'm assuming that most of the people on this call are regulatory and may or may not have minimal interaction with racehorses. So again, it's an overview, an introduction to HISA. I think there's going to be plenty of time at the end of my presentation for any questions. But I also will be providing contact information at the end, and I'd be happy to discuss it further if you have more questions. And with that, let's see, there we go. So HISA began, the whole idea of HISA began as an act. We can backtrack a lot back to 2013 when two congressmen named Barr and Tonko started the ball rolling. It took a little while for them to get people on board. If anybody followed it, they probably just didn't think it was ever going to happen. But in 2015, they did call for uniformity of regulations and the establishment of an independent, non-governmental anti-doping authority. The focus at that time was on integrity. But in 2019, Santa Anita brought a lot of national attention to thoroughbred racing, and not in a good way. And the understanding in the industry was that something needed to be done for the industry to survive. And that something needed to also address safety, not just integrity. And at that point, the US Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell came on board, and the act, the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act, was signed in 2020. The act led to the establishment of the authority, HISA, the authority. The purpose was the development and the implementation of a horse racing anti-doping and medication control program and a racetrack safety program. So I know you're all sitting there wondering, do these rules even apply to me? Well, let's backtrack to who they do apply to, which is the covered horses. And a covered horse, by the HISA definition, is any thoroughbred beginning with its first published workout and ending when the authority receives written notification from the connections, and the connections would be the registered owner and the responsible person, usually the trainer, notifying that the horse has either been retired or deceased. Covered horses can be located anywhere. They can be at a racetrack, at a training center, they may be at a layup or a rehab facility, on a farm, or veterinary clinic, university hospital, or referral clinic. Regardless of where the covered horse is located, it still is considered a covered horse, and the HISA's safety and medication rules still apply. So let's bring this to, do these rules apply to you? The rules apply to covered people, and covered people by our definition is anyone having contact with covered horses. Generally, this applies to people who are on racetracks or on breeding farms, layup facilities, but for veterinarians, it applies to all treatments, exams, diagnostics tests, whether they're done on or off the racetrack. So as a veterinarian, if you think you might be testing horses, even in a regulatory manner, even if it's not at the racetrack, and by horses, of course, I'm referring to covered horses, covered thoroughbred horses, then you would need to register. We also have non-covered people who will register, and these usually are people who are assistants to the veterinarians or to other covered persons, such as office support staff. So the main purpose that we have this expansive coverage for veterinarians is so that we are able to capture all the medical records around these horses. In the past, thoroughbreds would change hands, and in some cases very frequently, and every time they changed hands, those medical records were lost. So the primary purpose of the requirement that all this reporting goes through HISA is so that the medical records stay with the horse, regardless of where the horse is transferred. And again, this is during the horse's career. Once the horse is retired, they no longer need to record medical and treatment records. So in addition to making sure that the treatment records stay with the horse and follow the horse through his career, we're collecting an unprecedented amount of information about these horses. This information goes through our databases anonymously. And I'm going to go into that a little bit later, talking about some of the things we're doing to try and improve the safety of these horses, looking at risk factors and ways that we can mitigate the risks involved in horse racing. So as far as veterinary reports, every veterinarian who examines or treats a covered horse is required to report what that treatment was within 24 hours of the examination or treatment or diagnostic test. And this is done in an electronic format, which I'm going to go into in a moment. So in your case, this might involve a diagnosis, condition, which you would report, a non-surgical procedure such as a diagnostic test, or other information that might be necessary to maintain and improve health and welfare of the horses. So this video here is just showing you a little bit about how the portal looks. Hang on, I'm just going to pull this back because I'm not talking fast enough. Oh, instead, I pushed it forward. Let's try that again. Okay, so we're at the beginning. You look at a horse, you select the horse, and then you're going to want to upload a medical record, add, select the type of medical record, drug administered. It allows you to put in the condition that's treated. This, of course, is for a regular practitioner. In this case, they selected treating a fever, uploading some Banamine, making sure the date, the time, the person who treated is correct, and then you can save it. We also have, I'm not going to go into it right now, but we also have, instead of saving, you could click on next, and it allows you to put in more information in comments or upload files such as diagnostic test results, necropsy reports in the case of a horse that died. So a lot of times we get asked about foals, yearlings, horses on breeding farms that haven't yet started training or haven't had a published breed. There is no requirement to upload those records. There's no limit on when a horse has to be registered before their first published work. So there is the option of registering a horse earlier, and that would allow veterinarians to upload their medical records. Otherwise, if the horse isn't yet registered with us, you're not going to find them in our portal. And in that case, the requirement as far as medical records would be whatever your state's veterinary medical board requirements are. And at that point, the responsible person and or the owner would be the person held responsible for maintaining those medical records. So that once the horse does become registered, if there's a need to look further back in the medical records, they are required to have those on hand. So we also get asked a lot about disclosure of records, violation of privacy. So the records within the portal are only able to be viewed by the connections with that particular horse. The person who is registered as being the responsible person, that's usually the trainer, the registered owner of the horse, the private veterinarian, which we refer to as attending veterinarian, would be allowed to see that horse's previous medical records. And the regulatory veterinarians do have access to all treatment records for all horses. So the regulatory veterinarians at the individual racetracks do have access to those veterinary records. So we are well aware that some states' veterinary practice acts do protect the privacy of owners. And of course, it comes up as, how does HISA get around this? Well, HISA has been provided the authority to require the recording of the treatment records in our portal by the act of Congress that was signed and by the regulations that have been approved by the Federal Trade Commission, which oversees HISA. So it's basically, if you want your horse to run at a HISA covered track, you are agreeing to abide by the HISA regulations, which include the requirement that all treatment records be recorded in the portal. So if in your interactions with horses, something occurs and you become concerned about the welfare, condition, or care of a covered horse, we do have some means of you reporting to us your concerns. We have a welfare and deprivation of care rule, and we also have multiple ways that you could report it, including remaining anonymously if that's what you prefer to do, or if individuals would prefer to do. As regulatory veterinarians, I would assume this wouldn't necessarily apply to you. You'd feel comfortable speaking directly to us. But if you did need to remain anonymously, or if in your interactions and speaking with someone who wants to report something, they can remain anonymous. We have a telephone hotline, we have a text line, and we also have an email line. And this to the, I think you can see my pointer, to our left is an infographic, which you can find on our website. I'm going to get to our website in a moment, and you could print that out and hand it out to people. I spoke about the gathering of data. We have a number of things that we are gathering to look at the risk factors, a number of different parameters, and we also have a number of programs that we're working with. We're doing a lot of work with AI and with some amazing IT people out in California with Amazon online services. We have a program we're working on that will allow regulatory veterinarians to assess every horse that's entered in every race at their racetrack and look at the likelihood of that horse being injured in a race. Basically, they're looking at what are the risk factors. There's a rating system which determines after a horse reaches a certain point, it's going to require further analysis, further investigation, and further scrutiny of the regulatory veterinarian prior to allowing that horse to run. These are in development. We're also working with AAEP on some other development strategies to mitigate the risks involved in racing. So this is a quick look at our website. It's at HISA, HISAUS.org. We have a number of different pages, of course, on the website. If you need to get in touch with us, we have our main number. We have the tip line over here. We have a means for you to register directly from the website. We also have, of course, you can find all of the regulations and a resource page. On the resource page, you can find other infographics in addition to the one I just showed you concerning welfare concerns. We have handbooks, including a handbook for veterinarians who are practicing off of the racetrack. We have fact sheets, we have on-demand webinars, and we also have how-to, which includes how-to step-by-step and how-to videos, which are very helpful. So again, here's some of our online resources which you can access from our website. Here's a little look to the right at the cover of the handbook for veterinarians practicing off of the racetrack. And as promised, here is our contact information, the help desk. That's the same number that was on the website. We have the help desk feedback at HISAUS.org. To register, you can go to our website, HISAUS.org, and click on that login register at the top of the page. And if you have specific veterinary or safety questions, you can either reach to the help desk or you can reach out to me personally, regvet@hisaus.org. That actually is a a email mailbox that is monitored by the 3 veterinarians that work for HISA. In addition to myself, we have Dr. Jennifer Dernberger, who is in charge of the veterinary department. And we have Dr. Karen Hassan, who is our veterinary compliance officer. She does a lot of the visits to the individual racetracks and works with the veterinarians on the ground to bring them up to speed and make sure that their racetracks are in compliance. Again, I am the veterinarian liaison, so I do a lot of interaction with the boots on the ground, with veterinarians out in the field who have questions, who need assistance, and I am here to help. So again, it's RegVet, like regulatory veterinarian, RegVet at hisaus.org. And I have a few minutes, I think, if there are any questions. And I'll leave that slide up for a couple minutes if you want to jot that down.
Thanks, Sherry, for a great overview presentation. We do have one question in the chat. Are racing quarter horses included?
At this time, they are not. Only thoroughbred race horses are included. There are a couple of racetracks who have opted not to simulcast. They're not exporting their signal outside of their state, and as such are not under the jurisdiction of the FTC and are acting outside of HISA. These are thoroughbred racetracks. Example of one is Arapahoe in Colorado, which just started up in this past week. Their very short season. There's a couple of other racetracks. Louisiana, West Virginia have opted not to participate. Texas is another place that has opted not to participate. The majority of the other racetracks in the thoroughbred racetracks in the United States are under HISA jurisdiction.
And I have one more quick question that I have received is, are the vaccination and testing records of a covered horse available to state animal health officials during a disease investigation? You did mention regulatory veterinarians, but we assumed that that was the track regulatory veterinarian.
So you would have to register as a regulatory veterinarian to be able to access that. The other option would be to contact us directly and explain the situation and the fact that you're doing an investigation. And then I would imagine that we would have no problems making those records accessible so that, you know, we can protect the horses. But ideally would be go ahead and register as a regulatory veterinarian. And that way also, if you are doing a disease investigation and you need to do any testing, you would be required to document that testing in the portal, and you're already registered and set to do that. And you can upload results into the portal as well. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank you for your time, Sherry. And if you have any other questions, I'm sure Sherry can give us more updates at a later time.
Did I stop sharing?
Nope, you're still sharing.
Oh, I gotta figure out how to stop sharing. Where'd it go? Shoot.
Let me see. With that, while she's trying to figure that out, let's go and on to our next speaker. And we're going to get an update on the NAD prep funding from Lisa Garson. Lisa, can you unmute your line?
Yep, and I was trying to share to see if I could bump Sherry's screen off, but it won't let me start yet. So
okay. Sherry's gonna have to come off of her share first then.
I'm gonna just try signing out because it's not letting me unshare.
Okay, thanks, Sherry.
All right, thank you.
All right, Lisa, you should be able to get on there now.
all right. And can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can. Go
All
right
right.
ahead.
Great, thanks. So I'm Dr. Lisa Garson. I am a project coordinator with the National Animal Disease Preparedness and Response Program. And thank you for giving me a few minutes of time during your call just to share about our program updates. There we go. All right. So for anyone not familiar with the program, NADPREP was created in the 2018 Farm Bill, and we fund APHIS cooperative agreements with a variety of applicants, including states, tribes, producer organizations, veterinary organizations, universities, and other federal agencies for the purpose of increasing the capability and capacity for our nation for prevention, preparedness, and response to high consequence emerging and foreign animal diseases. In total, NADPREP has awarded over $54 million in funding to over 250 projects, and the program has $17 million to fund projects in fiscal year 25. For equine specific projects, NADPREP has awarded more than $675,000 to 2 projects targeting equine interests for projects to improve biosecurity and disease modeling. In addition to equine specific projects, NADPREP has funded more than $26 million for 125 projects that benefit multiple livestock species that include equine sector. And then these are the 2 projects that NADPREP has funded that are specific to support equine interests. In 2022, we funded 1 project to increase biosecurity measures, and in 2024, we recently funded a project to develop a population data set for disease modeling. Looking at these a little closer, so this is the first NADPREP funded project that specifically supported the equine industry. The American Association of Equine Practitioners has been working on increasing biosecurity and disease prevention in the horse industry. They identified gaps in biosecurity knowledge, and then they developed outreach efforts for a range of audiences. And deliverables for this project include educational materials such as fact sheets and biosecurity tools for, again, a variety of audiences. Colorado State University is developing a national level equine population data set that can be used to model potential disease introduction of equine transboundary diseases into, and also estimated spread within the United States, as well as evaluation of mitigation strategies. The fiscal year 2025 funding opportunity is currently accepting proposals, and there's up to $16.5 million in available funding. The application due date is October 18th, and we expect to announce awards in the spring with projects starting in July to August of 2025. If you are interested in applying or know someone who may be interested, you can visit our webpage. And I did see that in the agenda, there is a link to the funding opportunity announcement. So if you're interested, you can click on that and find out more information. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa? I commend USDA for giving equine industry an opportunity for these funding sources to strengthen and protect our equine industry in the United States. So I strongly encourage folks that have some project ideas to help protect our equine population to actually look at this funding opportunity.
Yep, thanks for letting us share. And then equine is considered livestock, but there's a specific equine's been intentionally added to the funding opportunity for this funding year cycle. So you can check out that addition so that it's really clear that the equine industry is eligible to apply for equine specific projects. So thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, I've got a couple of announcements, just as some reminders. We do have the U.S. Animal Health Association Committee on Equine will be meeting on October 14th at the Gaylord Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. So again, those interested can reach out to the chairs, Dr. Joe Fish in Florida and Dr. Mike Odian in Pennsylvania. As also a reminder, the American Association of Equine Practitioners Annual Convention is going to be held December 7th to the 11th in Orlando. More information can be found on the AAEP website. Those are all of the announcements. As I said at the beginning of this call, we will have no call next month, and we will return calls in November. So if you have any suggested topics or ideas, please feel free to reach out to me. And again, thank you to our speakers today for great presentations and information. Everyone have a great rest of your week. Thank you for joining.